Welcome to the Iowa blog. I am your host, Craig Wynn. This will be part 13 of our series entitled In the Garden. The purpose of these programs has been to reveal how our very distant past, some 6,000 years ago, serves as a harbinger for our almost immediate future, just 8.5 years from today. What we learn in the garden is what Yahweh viewed as an ideal setting for humankind, which is why he is returning us to the garden upon his return with his son, the Mashiach do David, on Yom Kippurim, that 5 days later, the entire earth will be transformed in the conditions experienced in the garden. The earth will be rid of all political, religious, patriotic, conspiratorial, militaristic interests and the hosts of those caustic things that have been so harmful to humankind. And we will enter again the perfect bliss of a garden of great joy where we will be able to live with our Maker for 1,000 years. This is particularly appropriate for the mortal remnant of Israelis, who will be left behind after the final ingathering of God's people on Teruah, and who have been prepared for their God's return with the Messiah and King Dod by the sacrifice of the red heifer, which is something we have discussed at length previously. This will enable this mortal remnant to camp out with Yahweh around the earth for this wonderful celebration of life, while all of those who have been previously gathered in and have become spiritual beings as a result of Yahweh's enrichment and empowerment, we will be able to enjoy the earth in this condition, but also be able to explore the universe. So, by studying the garden, we know where we're going. And we even learn how to get there, which is by listening to what God says and then, acting upon it. And we learn what will cause us to be excluded from the company of those who get to enjoy it. So now we have just heard from Yahweh as he asked both Adam and Chawah why it was that they thought it was appropriate to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And both of them had horrible answers and did everything but accept personal responsibility or show any degree of thoughtfulness in the decision that cost them so much. And now Yahweh turns his attention to the serpent. Now, the serpent at this point had been a cherub. And as a cherub, the serpent was a very special malach or spiritual messenger or envoy of Yahweh. The cherub have a specific duty, which is to protect the set apart place of the temple and the resting place for the Ark of the Covenant. And they are also on the Ark of the Covenant itself. And they are debuted to us in the garden, on the walls of the garden, precluding humans outside of the garden who are already enveloped in religion and politics and militarism and violence. They're even called Hamas, from entering the garden and spoiling life there. And of course, once the three characters in this story are escorted out of the garden, they serve to preclude readmittance. This garden, by the way, we are told by the location of the rivers whose headwaters emerged from it, that it is under what we would call Lake Van today. If you look at eastern Turkey, you'll see where Lake Van is and its proximity to the mountains of Ararat. And so this is where the garden was. It is why Noach built the ark in this place. It is why the first Civilizations with recorded language existed along the shores of the Black Sea. It is why they were inundated with 500 feet of salt water, because it was a freshwater sea some 4,500 years ago. And instantly during the deluge, which Yahweh said would be started by an upwelling of deep seawater, which indeed it was. You could look at the Burkle impact crater right now, and you can see how it, at that time, 4,500 years ago, did exactly that thing, and it caused a deep upwelling of seawater that rushed up Mesopotamia through the mouth of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, all the way up, leaving a sediment trail about 12 feet deep, and rushing all the way up into the Black Sea, destroying the civilizations that had become so hostile and violent there, turning the sea from fresh to salt water at this time, and then rushing out through the Bosphorus Straits, accomplishing exactly in this place, in this way, at this time, what Yahweh said would occur. So I share all that so that you know that this story of the Garden of Great Joy, the Gan Eden, has a long history, and as with everything that Yahweh shares with it, it is given a precise location and point in time. So this is the reference from which we start our countdown to our return. The time we're talking now is called year zero, Yah. And then we can progress from this point, which was 3968 BCE, all the way through Yahweh's return and our re-entry into the garden in 2033. And I've shared those dates with you along the way. So as Yahweh turns his attention now, having asked Adam why he did this and heard Adam's exceedingly lame response, and then asking Chawah why she did it, and her response was ever so slightly better than Adam's, but she still accepted no accountability or responsibility. He now turns to Hasatan, this Kerub who is about to become a Nakash. Yahweh, which is the proper pronunciation of Yod-He, Wah-He, he is our Eloah. The O sound from Eloah, God, is provided by the Wah, and it is concluded by the Ah sound in Yahweh's name. Directed us to this pronunciation through his Torah guidance. Torah not only explains the proper pronunciation of the Wah as an O sound, but also concludes in the Ah sound. And then he specifically told us through Moshe that his name was based upon the verb haya, which means in first person, ihaya, I was, I am, and I always will be, I exist. Haya explains how to pronounce the he and also the yod in Yahweh's name. It is he, yod, he, and it is pronounced haya. These things, together with also our understanding of the single most commonly spoken word in the Hebrew language, and one that has been spoken throughout recorded history, is shalom. The O sound in shalom is also from the Hebrew why. So Yahweh, who is God, Elohim, said to the spellbinding serpent, Waha Nakash, the sorcerous snake, this venomous viper, this poisonous, cold-blooded reptile, as a consequence of having acted this way, you have brought a curse upon yourself. More than any other beast, more than any other form of life of this open environment. On your belly you shall move about, and dirt you shall eat all of the days of your life. Bereshith, in the beginning, Genesis 3:14. So as we read these things, we find many interesting clues. First of all, now that we're back to people being responsible, Yahweh in this case, guess what we find? Yahweh's name. Yahweh's name was completely omitted from the recasting of his instructions. which is consistent with Rabbinic Judaism, with Pauline Christianity, and with Mohammedan Islam. Something to keep in mind when you're evaluating whether something is from Yahweh or is not. If it does not bear Yahweh's name, it is not from Yahweh. Simple. These instructions are now from Yahweh. It bears his name. He is the one and only God, Elohim, and he spoke on this occasion to the three individuals. Now he is speaking directly to the serpentine beast that we know as Hasatan. And he begins with key as a consequence. There's always a result. Cause and consequence are essential to Yahweh's Torah teaching. If you understand the terms and conditions of the covenant as they were delineated to Abraham, and seek the benefits as they were delivered by Dode through the first three, Moed Mikre, Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim, then you are entitled to join us on the Shabua harvest and live in these garden setting forevermore. If you do not, if you think that it is appropriate to twist Yahweh's name to serve your agenda, should you think that it is appropriate to misrepresent Yahweh's testimony, even if you're just tweaking it enough to lead people astray, you will be estranged. You will be sent away from God. And when that happens, there is no return. Not for a very long time and very distant future generations, via a very specific path that begins by getting God's name right. Not wrong. And by coming to embrace on a consistent and loyal basis the terms and conditions of his Bereth covenant agreement, and then attending in the appropriate manner and the right attitude his Moed Mikre. And so he said to the spellbinding serpent, who is very much alive, that as a consequence of the way that you have acted, cause and consequence, because of what you have done. So he let Hasatan do this thing. He did not preclude him from doing this thing. You know, some people say, I can't believe that God would allow that to happen. You know, why would God allow the rebellion that you're currently dealing with? Why would God, allow Muhammad to create Islam that kills so many Jews? Why would he allow Paul to create Christianity that hid the truth about his son and his Messiah under mountains and centuries of religious rubbish? Why would he allow Akiba to foist a false Messiah rather than recognize the actual Messiah? Why would God allow these things? The fact is, he did, beginning right here in the garden. So maybe you really want to search for the answer to that question, which is one of the reasons we are presenting this testimony. And the answer, if you care to hear it, is because free will is paramount to a loving relationship. And we were conceived to be children within Yahweh's covenant family. We can't choose to be in that family, and we cannot participate in that family, and we cannot benefit from that family unless we choose to love Yahweh, unless we choose to listen to Yahweh, unless we choose to act upon Yahweh's instructions, and unless we never go about twisting Yahweh's words to serve our agenda or his name, nor harm his people because of our selfish agendas. And you can see in this case that Adam and Chawah were in a position where they consistently and continually paid attention to what Yahweh said, and they avoided eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil for a very long time. We're not told how many years it was. It doesn't even matter. However, when there was a naysayer, when there was someone said, "Oh, I also speak the truth. You know what God told you, that you're going to die if you don't pay attention to my covenant? Nah, don't worry about that. You're not going to die. You want to be like God? He's only telling you this because he wants to preclude you knowing the full implications of what the possibilities are. He's trying to hold you back." It wasn't until that point that they rebelled. And this was the consequence. But you see, there's a lesson there. You can be part of God's family. You can think that, everything is going along swimmingly. God is communicating with us. We're growing. We're having a great time together. And it can all come to an end because you make a really stupid decision when you should have known better, when you were given all of the information to make the right decision and to be consistently loyal and supportive of God's instructions and of the very Father who had put you in this position, and you choose to rebel against that. It's over. God didn't say, "Hey, we've been family up to this point, so come on, kids, it's all going to be okay. Let's not worry about it. I know I said you were going to die, but come on. We're all just trying to learn, right? What's the harm in learning some more?" It's not how we reacted, did he? And you might want to take that into consideration if you decide that you don't want to be part of this anymore. You want to go over there and see if the grass is greener, if the fruit tastes better. Because you have acted this way. And this is called perfect. This is bad news for those who are disloyal. Bad news. They call perfect. With the perfect, it's one and done. The difference between the imperfect and the perfect conjugation is the imperfect, it speaks of ongoing behavior. The moment you stop that improper behavior, like one time, I'm not embarrassed to say, because it really educated me so that I could speak out against the religion, but at one time I was a Christian. At one time I was very political, and while I'm embarrassed by that decision because it was irrational on my part, ignorant too, just as my Christianity was, it prepared me to be able to do this job, just like Moshe was prepared with his life in Mitzrayim, which he knew was rotten to the core, both politically and religiously, to do his job. These are essential elements to the particular roles that we've been asked to play. And so the moment I stopped being religious and political, recognizing that these were both dishonest, counterproductive schemes to control humankind, then I became approachable to God and usable to God. And I was no longer irritating him with that. In fact, now it became an asset to be deployed by him. The same thing is true here. With the imperfect conjugation, had this been written that way, they would have had a chance to stop their habitual behavior. But God didn't give them that chance. Nope. Written in the perfect. One and done. When you deliberately misstate Yahweh's instructions, when you erase his name, eliminate it from your testimony, or you corrupt it in some way to serve your interests, it's one and done. There's no coming back. You're excommunicated. You need to be really careful. This is Being part of his covenant family is an ongoing responsibility. Now, you've noticed that since my calling in this regard, 23 years ago, I've stuck with it. I have remained loyal to Yahweh and to his people, steadfast in this pursuit. You know, you can hear that I have been struggling with a sore, not really so much a sore throat, but a cough. And it makes it really difficult to do this show because of the tones and the inflection that are necessary to project properly. During a program like this, you didn't see me say, hey, let me have a little time off and we'll come back at it later. No, we just stick with it. No matter what comes our way, even if the attack is from the inside, we stick with it. And in this case, the attack was from the inside. The Karub attacked and played Chawa for a fool. And then you can't have a more insider attack than Chawa giving the fruit to Adam such that he ate it. It was an inside attack. But rather than saying, we're going to stay the course, we're going to continue to enjoy Yahweh's company, they didn't. They blamed everyone but themselves for their mistake. And they gave Yahweh no credit for having told them what was important and what they needed to do. So this was now cause and consequence. They brought this upon themselves. It's one of the things that I am finding out because I'm now want to make certain that my response to our more recent rebellion and embittered attack, I want to make certain that my every word and action is in complete compliance with Yahweh's instructions. And so I'm reading about what Yahweh told the children of Israel to do and what Yahweh himself said and did on each of these occasions. And he's really clear. He says, don't pity them. Don't feel any sense of desire to even help them. Don't reach out to them. Don't try to save them. When you see my name and words being twisted, you need to obliterate the source of them. You need to wipe this out completely and totally, without reluctance, without remission. The lesson is first underscored right here. He said, because you have acted this way, call perfect, literally, and at this one moment in time, you have brought a curse upon yourself. You did this to yourself. I didn't do it to you. You invoked injury, misfortune, affliction, and harm, earning retribution for your own actions. He says, men Cole, more than any other beast. No, beast should be a palpitation in the heart. There were a number of beasts that Yahweh spoke about. In fact, it was his beloved son, Dod, under the title Gabriel, which means God's most competent and courageous man, who told us of the evolution of the beast, with the beast starting in Babylon, where truth and lies were intermixed, religion and politics were commingled to deceive and to control people, to cause their death and separation from Yahweh. And then we're told how that evolved into Media-Persia, which it did. And how that then was followed another evolution into Macedonian Greek culture, which it did. And how that then inseminated the culture of Imperial Rome, which it did, which was a bloody and fierce beast, probably the most vicious and brutal enemy of humankind ever. But he says then that beast would evolve to a beast that would tread upon the whole world, the Roman Catholic Church. When Yahweh speaks of beasts in this particular case, he is pointing our attention to the beasts that have perpetrated so much harm on his people. All of these beasts harmed his people. You have brought a curse upon yourself more than any other beast, more than any other form of life of this environment. Now, it's interesting. He has Bahama, beast. He has Chaya, life form. He doesn't mention a soul when speaking of Hasatan. He says, on your belly. Belly, that means you can't stand up. You know, humankind is unique. That's why Yahweh's name has two men standing up, pointing up, reaching up to Yahweh, directing our attention up to Yahweh, walking hand in hand with Yahweh. But if you're a snake, you can't stand up. You don't have feet. This is essential. Rather than being able to do as God wants, which is for us to stand with him, to walk with him, to enjoy camping out and exploring the garden with him. No. On your belly. Not a far cry from the Islamic prostration prayer, is it? On your belly. You're going to be like a reptile. Now you're cold-blooded. No feelings. You're toxic. And you're serpentine. You will go at your lies from all possible angles. On your belly. You shall move about. Halak, walk. Behave. Proceed. Yeah, walk in this case. Halak doesn't really mean to walk. Move about. And this was written in the call perfect, which means, sorry, pal, this is continual. We're not going to change. This is going to go on for a very, very long time without end. And dirt, minute elements and particles which comprise matter. Mortal man, comprised of the elements of the earth. What we're told of here isn't that the snake's going to devour mud or dirt, but that he's going to devour mortal humankind. And you think about how murderous the civilizations with their religions and politics that Hasatan has influenced. Yeah, from Babylon, where religion and politics were first integrated, all the way through the Persian religion and its conquests of much of the world, particularly the Greeks and their influence, which has been hugely miscast as a democracy, which it never was. When you look at Athens at the time, 90% of the citizens of, not citizens, 90% of the people who lived in Athens were slaves. 80% of those who lived in Rome were slaves. Only the upper echelon had any say in their lives in either place. And so you are worse than any other form of life. Sedeh is the next word, open environs. They had been cast out of the garden, and now he was in the world. He wasn't thrown in Sheol, not then, he will be. And it is the opposite of the open environs. It is akin to a black hole where nothing escapes, including light. Infinite only in one dimension, time. And it is in the open and broad environs that now Satan prowls. It's not hidden. He is right out in the open. He is the God of Christianity. He is the God of Rabbinic Judaism. He is the God of Islam. He is the Lord of religion. He's right out in the open. He is not hiding. His intention is to be worshiped as a God because that is the easiest way for him to devour humankind. He's been particularly adept at it. He's a clever one. All of the days of your Chayam lives, Hasatan will leave 3 too. There is the life as a Korub, guarding the garden. There is the existence as the serpent, lasting 6,000 years. It's going to culminate with his final act, which is to bludgeon my corporeal, Bashar, physical body to death on Teruah. And then he will be sent to an eternity in Sheol. Of course, for there to be justice, there must be recompense. For a judge to be moral, he must hold those who deceive, who destroy, who steal, who kill accountable. Satan used misrepresentations, errant citations, a straw man argument, and outright lies to project his failings into the mix and deceive Chaywa, destroying her relationship with Yahweh, robbing her of her home, misdirecting